Sessions' speech focused on rallying against the suppression of free speech on college campuses and just general hostility against conservative students at any grade level. Now, he did add that school administrations are adhering to strict liberal ideologies and coddling students as well. Here now to discuss, Emily Jasinski, Washington Examiner commentary writer, and Patrice Leomuka, Independent Women's Forum senior policy analyst. Let me start with you, Patrice. What do you make of what the comments that Jeff Sessions had to make? And I think it resonates in high school, but obviously in a college campus setting as well.
Well, I think he wasn't wrong. There are a lot of campuses where this is the exact culture. I went to a private institution, and unfortunately, as a conservative student, this is the backlash that I faced. But what I am pleased that he talked to high school students, because these are kids who have not been, exposed to a politically antagonistic environment, and they need to understand what they're going into. Telling college students that they're coddled and they're snowflakes is like preaching to the choir or preaching to the sinners outside of the church. Neither of them are going to listen and have a come to Jesus moment. But let's get high school students to understand what they're up against, and so that when they get into these environments, that they can actually have an open mind and push back against opposing viewpoints.
I guess it depends on what high school you go to. I can certainly say, Emily, that my son saw a whole lot of liberal, ideology forced on him in high school. He used to come home and tell me about it, and it bothered him a lot. When teachers would blame either a Republican governor or Republican presidents or whatever for all the problems in the world. So I think this was a well-placed and timed message. But how do you think it went over?
Well, this starts in high school, absolutely, and that's something that I think is underappreciated, because we take for granted that there's liberal bias on college campus. Everybody understands that, but more and more and more it's seeped into high school culture. One thing to note about Jeff Sessions is that he's not just talking about it. He's not just complaining about the snowflakes. Under him, the Justice Department has actually pursued cases, especially at public schools, where there are potential First Amendment violations. So it's going beyond just complaining about the issue and talking about the rhetoric, which even President Obama agrees with and has come out against on several occasions. He's actually pursuing First Amendment cases, which I think is a big deal, because the more substantive pushback there is from the government, the more these schools, have incentive to stop treating children this way.
Now, Nikki Haley was at the event also. Kudos to Charlie Kirk for getting two such esteemed people on the same panel. I think she threw a little shade. Let's listen to what she had to say about this.
Real leadership is about persuasion. It's about movement. It's bringing people around to your point of view, not by shouting them down, but by showing them how it is in their best interest to see things the way you do.
Patrice, what do you think she was saying there?
I think she's trying to establish what a good leader should be, which is someone who doesn't necessarily have everybody on board all at one time, but they work using facts, using data, using just persuasive language to get people on board. And I think that's a skill that colleges and universities could be teaching students, using evidence, data in the real world, and applying it to what you're learning in the classroom to really make arguments that win people over. At the end of the day, maybe you don't, but at least you've picked up an invaluable kind of soft skill.
I think it's not necessarily a bad message, Emily, but I just felt like she was gone. She was talking about a few other things there. What are your thoughts quickly, please?
Yeah, I think you're right that she was throwing a little shade. But frankly, I think it's a message that needs to be heard, because I think the influence of social media on young conservatives has been dangerous. I think we have to be very mindful of making real change instead of just complaining, which is why I pointed out what Jeff Sessions is actually doing. So I liked the message. I think it needed to be heard. I work with a lot of students, and I think this was the right thing for them to hear.
All right, ladies, thank you both very much. See you again soon.